Today's podcast is brought to you in part by Powerful Creators Mentoring. Are you ready to manifest rapid growth in your business or sales career? Head on over to powerfulcreators.net/mentoring. Enter promo code MENTOR96, all caps, and get 96% off your first mentoring session. Today's show is also brought to you in part by Naked Warrior Recovery. I have been on a personal health journey to improve myself, and after stumbling across Naked Warrior's Happy Berry energy drink with all the good vitamins and electrolytes that give you great balance and mental clarity without the junks and jitters that other brands give you, I personally can't get enough of Naked Warrior energy drink powder. It tastes like happy berries too. Click the link in the bio, type in promo code JBolton at checkout for 20% off.
Welcome to the Josh Bolton Show, where we dive into interesting and inspiring conversations. And now, your host, Josh Bolton.
So, how are you beginning your properties? So you're in Australia, but are you buying like American properties or Australian properties?
Okay, so I'm not actually buying properties. I'm raising capital for developers. Yeah. And so I'm doing that in Australia, in the US as well.
Okay. So then that's interesting. I know there's like a lot of people I've talked to talk about the hardest part is actually just getting capital for the purchase. That's interesting that you specifically focused in on that. So do you get like I guess like a percentage or something?
That's right. I do. So whatever capital I raise, I get a percentage of, and I tend to work with, because I don't have a large database myself, so I work with organizations that do have large databases of investors, and then split the capital raise fees with them. Okay.
Well, I'm just curious, what's like your average percentage? Is like 1-2% more?
Oh God, 6%. Yeah.
I thought you were about to say 60. I'm like, well, what's the point of raising capital then?
No, 6%.
What's an average client that you raise capital for? Is it $400 million?
Well, I'm at the start of my journey at the moment. So So far I've raised 2 million.
Hey, that's pretty good.
It's awesome. Those numbers are going to go up. I've got a client that I'm meeting on Friday, and I know that they're looking for about $7 million. So
nice.
Yeah.
I'm saying, hang on, math's not my thing. What's 6% on 7 million?
Well, actually, I'm planning to raise $1 billion over the next 5 years.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah. So,
what are your tactics for that then?
Well, the whole reason behind doing it is because I see the I'll backtrack. So the projects that I'm raising capital for, they've all got some kind of ethical twist to them. So it's either affordable housing or sustainable housing or building resilient communities or building homes for people with disabilities. So the real ethos behind the capital that I'm raising is to help make people's lives better, where they don't traditionally get looked after in that way. So for me, raising $1 billion, what does that mean? Well, it means a lot of partnerships. It means a lot of working and collaborating with organizations and different groups that have a similar set of values and that want to essentially see the world being a better place. Because my argument is that if we don't start looking out for, if we don't provide more affordable homes, if we don't provide more homes for people with disabilities, if we don't provide more resilient communities, if we don't provide more sustainable homes, all of these different issues that we're seeing in society are going to come and bite us in the bum. So it's not just the people that have been affected because they don't have those homes. We're affected too. So it's really an insurance policy looking after ourselves while looking after other people. But the twist on it is being rewarded, really well rewarded, because from my experience in doing ethical property investing, you can achieve double-digit returns, which is often a lot better than the regular person doing traditional property investment.
Oh, 100%. No, and that's actually kind of funny. A week or two ago was my sister's birthday, and she works at a church, so we went out to the church and surprised her by showing up and all that. And for me, like, I've always grown up in it's not the full like Down syndrome autistic one where they put them to this cage, but it's not mainstream. It was like a weird middle in between where it was some autistic, but some of the normal kids. So I grew up with the autistic and the Down syndrome, and the deaf and blind too. And I was just one of those at a young age. I realized like these parents love their children so much that they're practically going into debt, even though they cannot afford, sadly, to keep these kids running. And it was just one of those, tying back to the church thing. Her church is very well off, so they have a whole group for like 20 of these adults that are autistic. And essentially, it was just one of those. Again, I talked to them because I grew up with them. I knew their language, their frequency, how to talk to them. And as one of the guys in the wheelchairs left, and I just kind of said to myself, not out loud, I'm like, I wish I can like get money so I could build something that their parents can ethically just leave their kids there. They're taken care of. And obviously they can visit all they want and bring their own food and stuff. But it's like, they know if they have to disappear for a couple of days, the kid's not going to be destroyed, kind of thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it was just one of those, I sat there, I'm like, now I got to figure out how to get all this money. Lo and behold, there you are.
Yeah.
So before we get too deep into the woods, I have a lot of editing in the early half to do. Can we give a little synopsis of who you are and what you do for those that just know? Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm Dr. Dionne Payn. I'm the CEO and founder of High Impact Property Investments. And we specialize in partnering investors that are looking for double-digit returns with projects that provide affordable and sustainable homes.
Awesome. So then I'm just curious, because this is more a combination of everything. What was that moment or the events leading to saying, I want to do this? Because there has to be sequences of events that you're just something like, I need to do this.
Yeah. Well, if we go back to the very start, okay. I was also brought up in a church community, and my mum and my nan were a really, I was going to say integral. That makes it sound as if, it revolved around them. It wasn't that, but they were just a really, really big part of the community. Mm-hmm. And so that's how we grew up. And that's like, I grew up just, there was the religious side of things, but there was also the service side of things. And that's mm-hmm. That's the impression that's been left on me anyway. So I've always really wanted to help people, take care of people in that sense. I actually started because my mum's a nurse.
Ah, there you are. I was going to say, you lagged out again. I lost you out. My mum was a nurse.
Yeah. My mum was a nurse. And I remember saying when I was younger, I want to be a nurse just like you. And she said, no, you want to be a doctor because nurses are underpaid and overworked. So that kind of directed my journey. And I didn't become a medical doctor, but I did get a Ph.D, and the Ph.D was in natural products from sugarcane. So as part of that, I was looking for medicines from sugarcane, and we found sugarcane has anti-diabetic properties in it. So
interesting.
Really interesting, because the moral of the story, what I took away from that is that when we refine sugar, we actually take away the parts of the sugarcane plant that are designed to help us heal.
So what's interesting is actually I had a guy on a couple months ago, and he specifically specializes in adding microhexes into the structure of sugarcane to re-add like whatever to make it healthy. And then actually he's like, it's like an actual viable food. He says, it sounds crazy just to eat sugar, but he's like, it's a viable carb now. It's not just the sugar that makes you fat. That's where, like you saying that, I'm like, oh, wow. So sugar in a different sense is going to be a good frontier for us.
Yeah. You've got two approaches. You've got not refining it in the first place, or lightly refining it. And then you've also got the things that you can add into it to make it more nutritious and more beneficial for the human body.
Yeah, it was just
Yes.
one of those, I guess he said his contraption is a small little 2 foot by 2 foot thing you can add on the conveyor belt, and it just automatically adds in whatever his product is and without ruining the flavor of the stuff. And I'm like, that's so cool.
That's
He's
very
like,
cool.
and he's like, well, the only problem is all the sugar refiners are so tightly packed. There's not even like a 1 foot by 1 foot to put my machine in. So he's like, it's hard to convince people to use it. I'm like, oh yeah, that'd be a bit of a logistical problem. So you figured out your studies for sugar and you got all that. What happened after that? We got your your diploma.
I got my PhD, and I then stopped everything to have children because I was in my early 30s at that point. And then we were just in a position where we wanted to buy our own home, and we were on one income because I wasn't working. I stayed home looking after the kids. And so that led me to just think, well, if I don't know how to get into property, what about if I learn about property and then, find a creative way to be able to afford to get into property? And so that's what we did. And we did a couple of property education courses. And on the very first one that I did, that my husband did actually, we found a joint venture partner who had cash, but not the time to actually do developments. And we had the time, but not the cash to do developments ourselves. So we actually joint ventured. And then we did our first development. And I was actually thinking the other day, that was my first affordable housing project because it was a house with a studio attached. And what we did was we subdivided the block. We took the roof that connected the main house to the studio and we sold them separately. And that studio, the main house was, it went for a good price. The studio also went for a good price for the studio, but it sold for below 300,000, which at the time was really amazing. I mean, if it sold for less than 300,000 now, it'd still be really amazing. So it was actually quite amazing. And I hadn't actually connected those two things. That was my first affordable housing project. A couple of projects in, I was looking at a piece of land. So the suburb that I was developing in, that I'd done a couple of projects in, I started to get to know quite well. And I just saw this piece of land across the road from a shopping centre and thought, well, that would make a really great project. Now, the developers who had that land, they'd already put in a development approval for 14 one-bedroom townhouses. And so I looked at it, I did the numbers and realised that if I offered $100,000 less, then we'd be able to make the project work. So that's what I did. And they said yes. And I brought some joint venture partners in to that as well. Now, the cool thing about that, which I didn't appreciate initially, was that 3 of those homes were designated as affordable rental accommodation, and they would be designated that for a period of 10 years. And they had to be managed by a community housing provider. So that was my first project where I was offering consciously affordable housing. And even though we had the affordable rental housing, the whole complex was affordable. The properties were 60 square meters. They sold on average for 350,000. There was nothing in the area that was that price and at that quality because it was a new build. And so I had friends that bought into that townhouse complex. And I know that they wouldn't have been able to stay in the area had they not had somewhere like that to go. So that was my first real project where I could see the impact on the community by doing it. And I really loved it. And the project itself had some challenges and lots of challenges, actually. But we finished it. And every time I walk past now, I just go, oh, wow, I did that. And I can see how people's lives have changed because they had that option. And so from then, and the other thing was that I got a really great financial benefit from that as well. So the money that I put in, I got 25% per annum on that. Now, if it wasn't for the fact that it had that benefit, which, like I said, I really didn't appreciate at the beginning, but if it wasn't for the fact that it had that benefit and that I was invested into it more than just the financial return, I don't think I would have done it because I fell out with my joint venture partners. The builder went broke. We had so many issues. I probably wouldn't be involved in property development again had it not been for the fact that there was a purpose bigger than me for doing it.
Oh, 100%. Yeah. You have to have something that big. You have to have a mission, a goal that no matter how much shit hits you in the face, you keep going. I'm gonna say that
And there
sounds
was
like
a lot of shit that hit me in the face.
it sounded like a lot did. So that's interesting. So then that is your first project and that got you started. How long ago was that?
So that project started at the mid 2016, actually. Yeah.
Oh, not too far back. Okay.
Not too far back, no.
So then what's your current big project that you can talk about that your investors won't get upset at?
Well, look, I want to talk about two big projects, actually, because yesterday I launched a book, and the book's called Ethical Property Investing.
Okay.
And in the book, I really talk about why we should be looking at investing in ethical property investments. And the argument that I make a few arguments, but the biggest one that I make is that there's so much happening in the world right now. And one of the biggest things that we can do to dictate the way that our future pans out is to be really deliberate about where we spend our money and where we invest our money. So if we're investing our money into things that make the world better, we are also going to feel a lot more better about that, as well as getting the financial returns. So if you've got that happening, if you've got good financial returns and you've got the excellent social and environmental returns as well, that should be our normal, not the old way, because the old way isn't working.
It really hasn't, but we somehow made it work this long, kind of thing.
I know, and it's really about evolution, and it's really about where do we want to go. So if we carry on with business as normal, then we're not going to get to the places that we want to go, because we're creating so many problems for ourselves over here. But here's a different way. I was going to say it's a new way. It's not really. People have been doing it, but it's just not been mainstream.
Yeah.
So here's a different way that doesn't exclude people. It includes everybody. And that's way more fulfilling and way more valuable for all of us. And I think that's a really important point to get out.
Oh, 100%. That's like I was saying earlier with the whole story with the church thing. I grew up with it, and like I said, the people are it with the current legal structure, it's legal and it's fine. Is it morally okay? Not really, but I'm making money, so screw it, kind of thing. I think, especially with COVID, that's reset a lot of systems for better or for worse. And I think, especially being isolated for at least a year and a half. I want to say you in Australia, you just alleviated like your 2-year stay-at-home sentence, huh? You guys smell corona and you're like, nope.
Well, Australia went into full lockdown borders, everything. And there was some suburb cities and states that were really hit, like Victoria, Melbourne. They really copped it, and they were in lockdown for a really long time. I think they were the most locked down city in the world, actually. And I know that there's a lot of trauma that has happened as a result of that.
I was actually just talking to an Australian lady earlier this morning at 1 a.m. my time, 8 her time. And she said, like, she's been a road construction worker this whole time. She's like, but they've been running me 12 hours a day. But she's like, that's where she mentioned, like, yeah, after our 2-year sentence of lockdowns, I'm like, yeah, you smell corona. You're like, oh no, we ain't playing around. Lock the doors.
Yeah, exactly.
But okay, so what I was trying to get back to is the with COVID resetting everything. I've especially noticed it in general. People, like, we've been isolated. We're social creatures. We even if, like me, I'm introverted. I don't like going to big parties and loud noises. It stresses me out. I go in my corner and just like, I want to go home. But in general, I still want to interact with people. And I think, especially, at least the world got a 6 months lockdown. We realized how important our community and our earth is, because there was a brief moment where the earth could actually breathe again instead of being polluted.
Yeah, it was amazing. The other thing that's happened recently, which has really strengthened my resolve to get the message out, our local area. So I live in northern New South Wales. It's about 9 hours north of Sydney, very close to the Queensland border.
Okay.
About 2 hours south of Brisbane, which is the capital city of Queensland. Well, we've just been hit by floods, and there's a lot of low-lying areas here which were just decimated. We're talking about water up to the roofs of 2-story buildings. We're talking about shopping centres that have been wiped out.
That's an insurance nightmare. Sorry.
It's true, and it's true. And actually, the nightmare is for the people that didn't have insurance because they couldn't get insurance because they were in a floodplain. We've got people, so it's not just the low-lying areas. We've got people that live in the hinterland areas. So, they live on the high ground where you'd think, oh, well, they'd be safe. Well, no, they're not. The roads are impassable. Trees have fallen down. Roads have completely collapsed. We've got helicopters choppering food supplies, medical supplies to people that in those isolated areas. And some of them are staying, most of them have been evacuated. Now, the big thing for me, having done an affordable housing project and continuing to do more, it's like, well, there's not a lot of affordable housing anyway. The pandemic happened. Before the pandemic, we had an affordable housing crisis. Post-pandemic, we had an even bigger crisis. Post-floods,
it's even worse.
In this one town that's been really decimated, Lismore, of the 1,400 homes, 950 of them are unlivable. So where do those people go? And I put a post on Facebook the other day just saying, are we seeing the first climate refugees here? Because these floods are supposed to be 1 in 500, 1 in 10,000 years. But actually, we had a flood just now. We had a flood 5 years ago. We had a flood 6 years before that. I'm not sure how they sort of make those 1 in 100 year numbers, but these floods are becoming a lot more frequent than that.
Oh, 100%. I was to say it was either during the lockdown or near the end of the lockdown. So you had that insane fire over there too.
Oh, that was before the lockdown. Yes, we had the insane fires. Yeah.
That thing like burned like a
2019.
Burned like a quarter of Australia.
Yeah.
Or was it more? Last I heard was just like a quarter. Like if you did a ratio, I always, in my imagination, it's Australia. There's a little kangaroo in the top right corner, the little whale in the sea in the left. It's like you were the one in between and just wiped everything out. Or was it in a completely different area?
No, that was in our local area as well. So I again, in that post, I mapped it out. It was like 2017 floods, 2019 bushfires, 2020 to 2022 pandemic, 2022 floods. I'm really seeing the effects of climate change right now, and it's quite worrying.
So what are some of the projects you're working on to help with all this? Is it like, I have this crazy idea that 3D printed houses are going to be like the thing that saves the world? Are you working on something like that, or more like mud huts or something?
Well, I'm not going to advocate for going back to mud huts, but
I will. Get you down in the dirt. Let's go.
I see the benefit in simplifying our lives, because our lives have been a lot complicated. But at the end of the day, I'm somebody that raises capital for property development. So, in my world, in my understanding, and in what I'm trying to do, it's really about supporting developers who are really making sure that the environmental credentials, they're going above and beyond the current environmental credentials. They're going above and beyond the current social credentials. So I'm supporting a developer at the moment, raising capital for him. And he's got a project that's a 72 bed rooming accommodation, and that's in Southeast Queensland. What that means is that it provides affordable accommodation for women. It's not that it's excluding anybody, but the primary targets are women over 55 and young professionals. And so these are people that can't necessarily live in larger houses. It would just be a bit of a waste for them to live in a house that's really large, where they're paying for more space than they actually need. Right. And they're finding it unaffordable anyway. So this project is providing affordable housing. It's providing sustainable housing because they're working with an architect. Their goal is to be net zero by 2030. This building is designed to be net zero. So when I talk about net zero, it's basically they've positioned the property in a way that it makes the most of the cooling breezes. It makes the most of the sun in the winter, so it can heat up the building without the need for air conditioning. They've got community gardens in there, so they can promote that sense of community with the residents. They've got shared car facilities. So basically, you don't have to have your own car. You can use the shared car for each block. There's bike storage available as well. They've just been very sensible about how they've designed it in terms of the stormwater. That rather than they do have large stormwater pits as well, but they also have rather than just concreting the area, they've got a specialist paving system, which means that water can be captured. So there's still grass in there as well. I don't know the technical details of it, but I just know that they've really thought about how it can be the gold standard in terms of the environmental credentials and the social credentials. And investors into that project, the target return on that is 20% per annum. So in that sense, it's actually, those are the kind of projects that I'm really happy to be supporting.
That's awesome. No, that's really awesome. Like I said, the crazy idea for me was like 3D printed mud houses, but actually it's kind of more, I wouldn't say it'd be more ESG friendly, but it'd be more cost effective to run something like that. But another one that's always bugged me is the plastic we have. And there's a lot of plastic we can't really recycle because it's so toxic, or it can't be recycled. And it was just one of those, I remember like walking in LA and seeing like this one trash can out of cement, but it was a lot of plastic in it. And I was like, interesting. I'm like, I wonder if there's going to be like, that was just more of like a street art thing. It was back in like the 70s when they made it. So it was more like that. But I'm like, plastic though has a very long life. It would actually make sense to throw it in concrete, which has a long life too, and would cut down on a lot of emissions other than the remelting it to whatever pellet shape you need. But like, that might be another thing that comes. And as they tell people like, Josh, we're not throwing plastic in concrete. I'm like, you never know. Well, you never know.
Well, here's the thing. There's a gentleman, I can't think of his name, but he is making homes out of plastic. And
interesting.
Yeah. So taking plastic out of the sea, taking plastic from landfill, and building homes from that. So it's been a while since I've spoken to him. I think it's been about 2 years, but it wouldn't surprise me if he's up and running and building. And he's done pilot studies in areas like Vanuatu as well, where, when the disasters have hit, they need accommodation really quickly. So they've done pilot studies out there and proved the concept. The last I heard, he was raising money to take it on a larger scale and actually have a larger pilot study. But I think if any time, like now is definitely the time.
Oh, 100%. Like for me, when I first started working at my current job that I have, that was one of those, I was listening to some podcasts and they were mentioning how plastic could be the new whatever. And they said, actually, it could be that like your next house, you could actually afford a mansion at a fraction of the price of your current house. And it'll last you at least 500 years. And he's like, not many houses.
That's really interesting. And actually, I think that the only issue with that is it depends on the land price. But if you're, yeah, wow, that's cool.
That's where they ran the numbers, like to get lumber, because lumber's getting short. We don't have enough, all that. It's only going up. But they're like, to get literally, they're like, let's say a 4-bedroom, 2-bath, kitchen and all that made out of huge industrial Lego blocks of recycled plastic. They're like, at worst, it might cost you 10, 20 grand. To rebuild that whole house would cost you $300,000 to $400,000. So they're like, do the math. It makes more sense to get a plastic house. And it was just one of those I jokingly mentioned to my coworkers, like, Josh, we're not going to buy plastic houses. I'm like, oh, whatever. I'll go buy my cheap piece of land and build my little Lego house. And then you're all going to be pissed at me.
Well, look, when we think of plastic houses, my mind goes to Lego. Mm-hmm. However, another thing that I'd not really paid much attention to was in the affordable housing development that we did, the 14 townhouse one I was mm-hmm. telling you about before. The cladding, the decking, Yeah, so the cladding of the house and the decking, there was something else as well, was made of plastic. So it was made of plastic and other materials. So there were rice husks in there and sort of other vegetable fibers, and it was all recycled. And it looks really good. You actually don't know that it's plastic. It's just decking and cladding on a house.
So I want to show you something really quick. So this is a 3D printed little boat.
Yeah.
Now imagine if we could scale that up from this little boat to a house. And this cost me pennies to make. That's like your decking. That would be an amazing innovation to get going.
It would be amazing. And, the 3D printing, I know that there's a company around here, a startup company around here, who are looking at doing something like that. That's really fascinating.
Awesome. So I cut you off. Did we lose the track of that one?
I think we're done.
Okay. Sounds good to me. But so
plastic houses, it's already happening. And it's I think, because for me, I do have this, I don't know whether I want to live in a plastic house, because my mind just goes to Lego. But when I remember, the project that I did, that did use plastic, and it looked really great. There's so much more possibility than just thinking Lego house.
And it could just be one of those, like the guy said, if you want a cheap under $10,000 house, you might get the Lego one kind of thing. The only thing you might have to change is your roof, because it's sheet metal every like 10, 15 years. But he's like, other than that, he's like, yeah, your imagination should limit, because plastic's so malleable but so strong.
Yeah. And something to lock up all of that plastic would be super valuable.
It's extremely valuable.
Mm.
I'm going to say the only one for me would be insulation, especially in your area. I might have to double layer it.
Yeah. There's a whole load of things to think about. But then, there are people that are specialists in this. I've got a friend who is involved in hemp plastic.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
So interesting. And hemp is one of those things. Years ago, before my second child was born, I published a magazine about hemp, because I started working for a guy who was involved in hemp. I learned about it, and I was like, hemp is amazing. Everybody needs to know about it. We can clothe ourselves, we can eat it, we can build our homes from it. It's just this wonder product. And it grows so quickly, and it takes up so much carbon dioxide out of the atmosphere. And when you put it into buildings, especially, it locks up for a long time. It makes them mold resistant and pest resistant and burn resistant. So it's just this fantastic plant, which is so, it's natural.
Oh,
there's a lot of stigma around it because of the criminality aspect of it, of course. But as not all cannabis plants are the same. Not all cannabis plants will have that effect on you. So I got really into writing this magazine and talking to people that were involved in the hemp industry. I as a result of that, I just love the potential that is there with hemp, and the hemp plastic side of things. You bring that into cars, you bring that into buildings, and this could be another way that we go. And bringing the 3D printing. We are, as humans, we are so innovative.
Yes, we are.
That's the thing, and I just really want to see us use our innovation for things that are going to keep us going on this planet rather than wipe us out.
As much as Elon Musk is awesome, and I appreciate all his innovations, but just this moonshot for Mars, it's like, why don't you shoot for the moon and we colonize there if we're going to do anything, kind of thing?
Why don't we just protect
or fix our problems here, and then we figure that out?
Because there's that thing, if you if we've got the same consciousness doing a shot for Mars and we get to Mars, great, but we're just taking our problems there as well. And then what other planet we're going to go to next?
Yeah.
I think as much as I love Tesla, I don't think Elon Musk is on the mark with this one.
Well, I would say, especially with like the Neuralink scandal that came out. Did you hear about
I don't know anything about that.
No? Oh my God. So the Neuralink is like a little device they put in your brain, and it connects to everything. And essentially it can monitor. marketing is to monitor Alzheimer's and figure out its root cause, but it's also one of those, if done right, it can fire electrons and essentially you play God and you can turn off emotions. And it was just, or you could stream straight stuff into your brain. Like you could watch Netflix straight in this. Well, they were working on it, and the closest they can get is chimps to our brain. And it came out within the last 2 weeks to a month that essentially, it came out that these poor monkeys were suffering and went brain dead over this chip. And Musk is still trying to push for human trials. I'm like, screw you, you're not going to do that to me. If those poor monkeys went through all that and you still don't know why, what makes you think it's going to work on us?
Yeah, that is a really bad idea.
Right?
That is a really bad idea.
Like, no, you're a great innovator and you're a great dreamer, but there are certain things one of them is you shouldn't play God like that.
And why turn off our emotions? That's what makes us human. That's what keeps us connected.
Exactly. Because like for me, I'm trying to learn trading and how to make money off the market kind of thing, ethically and safely. But for me, the sense of fear is actually important. If I turn that off, I'll just be buying stuff left and right, not even thinking about the consequences. And then when I turn it off and I'll look at it and be like, oh shit, why did I do that? So like emotions are very vital kind of thing.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's Musk. He dreams big. That's what I admire about him. But if he ever hears this in the future, please contact me, correct me in simple ways.
There's so much in that. There's the poor animals that died as a result of,
or just brain dead vegetables. They're still alive, but barely.
Yeah. See, that's not cool. That's
not. And I thought we were way past that, like animal testing stuff, personally.
Yeah. It surprises me when I see makeup products that say, oh, we don't test on animals. It's like, well, why do you even need to tell us that? Like, you shouldn't test on animals anyway. That doesn't pick you up in my mind.
No, I always think of this as like a Bugs Bunny Looney Tunes cartoon where like the guy like paints up the rabbit and has all the mascara and the future's like a woman. That's when I say we do makeup on animals. So I'm like, why are you trying to make it look human? It's a cute little rabbit. You don't need to change it. But yeah, that's just another one of those. It's like, why? There was no real reason. If you need to test it, get a control group, just tell them disclaimer, this could happen, pay them a good chunk of change and let them go.
Even then, I think that's really unethical.
Well, yeah, because you could burn their face with all the whatever. Yeah. Yeah. It's a hard, tricky route with all that. But so I'm just curious. We talked about 1 year project. What's the second one you wanted to talk about?
Oh, well, the first project was a book. The second project was the 72 room.
Sorry.
Yeah. Was the 72 bed rooming accommodation, and so that's in progress now. The developer is actually just working on the plans and getting the plans into council. So actually, as of this month, we should be ready to go on to stage 2, which is actually demolishing and building. And that's a conversation that I'll have with that developer at some point this week. The last 3 weeks have been, maybe even 4 weeks, have been very intense. Myself and my family had COVID. We recovered from COVID and had the floods. And in the midst of all that, it was getting the book done and the new website built. So I just need a couple of days to come up for air.
The world and the universe was like, nah, Miss Payn is going to go through a lot of pain right now.
Do you know what, though? Do you know what? Because I've never done anything like that before. Like I've never lived through anything like this before, to be honest with you.
A lot of us haven't.
No. But the thing that kept me going was this is important work. I'm not religious. I would call myself more spiritual. But I feel that this is the work that I was put on this earth to do. So it didn't feel hard. Like there were times when it felt intense and, I needed to take breaks and whatever, but it didn't feel hard. It felt like fun. It felt like, okay, communication's down for a week. Okay. What do I need to do? Like, how do I keep going? Like, I need to really rely on the team. The funny thing is that I decided that I was going to publish the book on International Women's Day. I was going to actually launch the book then.
Okay.
And that was about 4 weeks out, I decided that. And, for about a week, I was just looking for places that were looking for speakers for International Women's Day. And I couldn't find any. And I just thought, you know what, I'll just create my own event. And so the launch was going to be a fundraiser for two fantastic organisations that are providing affordable accommodation solutions for women. One of them is called the Women's Village Collective and the other one's called the Northern Rivers Community Foundation. So that was the fundraiser. We were going to go to a restaurant and celebrate the launch of the book and raise some funds. The business community were amazing. They sent heaps of donations that we could auction on the day. And then we had the floods, so communications were out. And so, there are a couple of things in that. I thought, okay, well, we'll move it online. And then hopefully by that point, the communications will be better. And then I realized that the amount of devastation that we're seeing around us, nobody's really in the framework to celebrate yet. There's just a lot of cleanup that needs to be done. So did manage to get the book up and out, which was fantastic. We are still raising money. We've got an online fundraiser that's happening for that, an online auction site. And both objectives will be met, which is fantastic. But it just didn't turn out the way that I thought it was going to be.
So I'm just curious. Someone's probably listening right now and just like, what's this website? So where can they go so we don't have to get to the end and then lose them?
Yeah, absolutely. So my new website is called, if I go to www.hippie.global, which is HIPI.global, they'll be able to have a read of the book. I've got a page where they can go and download the first chapter of the book. And then if they love it, they can buy the whole book, and there's links on the website for that.
Awesome. So other than all that, I'll just say madness going on. What else?
I think that's accurate.
It sounds like madness. I'm sitting here like, oh man, like I don't know if I can handle all that. So in all that madness and stuff going on, what was sorry, you mentioned it. I didn't even touch on it. So you got COVID. Was it just like Omicron or something? And you're all doing okay?
Yeah, we're all fine. It was, I went down quickly. I wasn't looking after myself as I should have been doing. So I went down quickly. But then, within a week, I was better. Within 2 weeks, I maybe not back to full strength. And it's been busy as well. So I know when I'm back to full strength that I'll start my running program again. And I'm realizing how much I miss it. So I think tomorrow I'm pounding the pavement and running again.
So did you get like the classic COVID brain fog or lungs kind of thing?
So what happened for me was I had fever. I didn't really know that I had a fever though, but I had a really pounding headache on that first day. And then I had a little bit of a cough sort of on the next days, just tired. Yeah, a bit brain foggy. I couldn't really, I had to not do work. There was no way I could do work and really have the level of conversations that I needed to. I couldn't really string a sentence together, to be honest with you. But it didn't last long. And the blessing is it didn't last long.
Honestly, that probably sounds like Omicron because I got it wasn't the original, the alpha strain, but it wasn't the mainstream Delta. It was that weird B or C Greek letter that no one wants to talk about. And that one was intense. I was out cold. I got the brain fogs. That actually lasted at least 2 months afterwards. I was foggy still like 2 months. My lungs didn't really come back to normal until like 6 months after. And it's for me being like I'm very hardy. My immunity is very strong. But to like, she could see it, the others can't. Where my bed is just the other way, it's about 10 feet. Mm-hmm. To get up from my bed to go to the restroom, it felt like I ran a marathon.
Wow.
So it was one of those, because like they said, being the tough guy, great immunity and all that. My dad, for some reason, was coming over to use the restroom too. We're both just winded beyond belief, and like, I just look at him in the eyes and said, "I can see where people die from this." Which is really hard to kill, but I can see where people die from this.
Yeah.
So he's like, "Can I use the restroom first?" I'm like, "All right, I'll go run there, marathon back to my bed."
Oh wow. Well, I'm really glad that you made it through.
I'm glad too. It was just a bummer that I was the one that introduced it to the house, but it spurred me to do. It really encouraged me to start this, because really Dick boss, he's gone now, so I don't want to say his name, but essentially this is when our government was paying people $600 a week cash to stay home. And he's like, "Oh, well, you're replaceable. I can get someone by tomorrow." I'm like, "Good luck with the government paying $600 a week. You barely pay half of that." If you could convince someone to come in to give up their government money, I will give you my apron and quit the job right there. Kind of thing. He never could. But that's where I made a promise to myself. When I recover from COVID, I'm like, I'm going to figure out a way. If I'm in that situation, it's by choice, and I'm getting a lot more profit from it than just I have to work for someone else kind of thing. Yeah. So that's what started my whole podcast journey in a nutshell. What are some other things that you're working on? And like the, not just like, instead of business, like you said, you do running, what other like hobbies are you working on?
Oh, hobbies. It's not a hobby as such, but I made a decision at the start of the year, because we've come out of COVID, and it was actually before we had COVID, but the whole of last year and the year before was just so intense. And over Christmas, I was like, we're going to have a proper Christmas break.
Okay.
And we went camping, and it rained a lot. So it wasn't the most fun camping, but what I loved about it was the area that we were in was absolutely beautiful. And we just had no internet reception. So that was a time that I didn't want to have internet reception. I just wanted to completely switch off. And I did. And it was fantastic. And I was out in nature, and, I just felt really rejuvenated all over again. So I made a commitment that at the end of every month, we would go camping. And so I've booked that in for the next 6 months. Now, unfortunately, our first month that we were going to go camping, which was the end of February, we didn't, because my husband was still recovering from COVID. There was no way we could go anywhere. And that's the weekend that the floods happened. So we had a holiday at home. And actually we didn't have communication. So
there you go. Because you didn't get to it. That's awesome.
What a great manifestor I am.
Yes, you are. Yeah, it's funny because I've been doing the same thing. It's like I chose every quarter instead of every month. So every 3 months, I just go like for 3 days. Even if there's like where I am, there's a lot of local camping spots, or I could be crazy and try to sleep in the hills with the lions and wolves, but I'm not that crazy. But that's my promise. Just like a 3-day detox from the grind, the noise, and everything. And it's been really nice. It's actually kind of gotten to the point, my little like, all right, Josh, just get through the next like 2 weeks, and then you can go camping in the hills, kind of thing.
Yeah. That's really great. And it goes back to what you were saying before about the microchip in the brain.
Okay.
My gosh, can you imagine having it always on? Like, having things constantly streaming at you. We have enough to deal with. And so those breaks are super important.
Oh, yeah. Well, so the one thing I didn't know about is still one of my coworkers told me is so Elon Musk was saying how like memes and the memes are just little packets of knowledge. We put pictures and text over it to make it funny. Yeah. But he said like a meme in general could be uploaded to your brain, and then you process why also they thought that was the way it was. And that's one of those they just said. I'm like, that's extremely powerful and a great way to brainwash people. And I'm very certain he thought about that too. I'm like, yeah, it's just one of those. I'm like, if it becomes mainstream, I'm like, I'm not going to touch it.
Me neither. It's interesting though, because I was talking to a friend about this the other day. She didn't go into the depth that you had explained, but I did say to her, it's interesting because I don't know, sometimes I think something and just go, I should action that, but I'm not really in a place to be able to action it. And I keep thinking of how cool it would be to, do an action at the speed of thought. Well, actually, no, that could be pretty scary. Bad sometimes. But,
yeah.
Just I think if we used it very deliberately. So, there's times that I think, oh, I need to talk to my mum, or I need to call my mum. I can't quite do it now, but, I'd love to just be able to send a message to her, sort of from my brain to hers.
Yeah, see, like that would be cool.
That would be very cool.
But it's like the direct interface, the mind. I want to say how you mentioned you were more spiritual than anything else. Same here. There has to be a higher power. Call it whatever you want, but I don't think it's like the formal religion. But my personal thesis, my whatever you want to call it, doctrine. I think the subconscious is more bigger in the sense that we realize. Because I personally think like souls are our energy, or like the electrons in our mind. And it's one of those, if you tamper with that, you're literally tampering with your soul kind of thing. And that's one of those of like, I mean, I can't prove it, but that's a no for me. It's like voodoo. Do not touch with voodoo either. I can't prove it, but I ain't touching it.
Well, I think it's as simple as that. If you don't understand something, don't do it until you understand it. If it's something that you're interested in, then take the time to understand it. But yeah, that for me, that's been something a motto that I live by. If I don't understand it, then I can just put the pause on it until I learn more about it.
100%. So I don't want to take you too long. How long do I got you for?
Another 4 minutes.
Perfect.
And then it's getting kids to school time.
Perfect. So real quick, we already went over what you did during the lockdown times. What are some tips, tricks, or advice for someone aspiring to be like you to start down that path?
I think, look, I feel like I'm really just on the cusp of my journey in terms of achieving the things that I want to achieve. And I mentioned to you before, I've got a goal to raise $1 billion.
Mm-hmm.
That it really comes down to finding, for me, it's been about finding my purpose and finding what I feel like I was brought here to do. And that took a lot of soul searching. And, it's been a very windy path. So I think that there were times where, for me, the difficulties that I encountered, I felt like giving up. And even other people, other friends advised me to just give up and just, stop trying to strive to do that. Like you can just be ordinary, you can just be normal. I think that we're all born for greatness, actually. And so aspiring to be normal, whatever that is, doesn't really cut it.
It's very subjective, because my normal was not normal for other people kind of thing. But by the definition, it's normal. You should be doing it too. So
yeah, exactly. So let's just raise the bar for ourselves, right? Let's just find out what our purpose is and really go for it and raise the bar for us and for everybody around us. And it's not, I'm not coming from a judgmental place. I'm coming from we've got so many challenges that we're facing in the world. Let's go and solve some problems. Let's go do that. Let's raise the bar for other people. Let's all be leaders. Because if we can do that, then we're going to have a much more cohesive society.
100%. So where can everyone get you at?
www.hippie.global, which is HIPI.global.
Any socials?
Yes, I'm on LinkedIn. If you do a search for high impact property investments on LinkedIn, you'll find me. You'll also find us on Facebook as well and Instagram.
Wonderful. It's been an absolute honor and a pleasure to have you on.
It's been so much fun. Thank you, Josh.
Same.
Well, congratulations. You made it to the end. You're an awesome person. Not many make it here. So, being the awesome person that you are, can you do me one more awesome favor?
can you rate and review this on whatever podcast services you're using? If you do it on Apple and you leave an actual written review, I have a thing on my website. I will take your written review and post it for all to see. Congratulations, you're permanently sealed on my site. Otherwise, I am trying to do YouTube more and live streaming. I will try to put as many of the YouTube links in the description of the show as I can. So give your boy some extra help over on YouTube. Watch my videos. I just mute it and change the channel, change the window or something. But yeah, that's it. Thank you for being awesome, and see you next time.